Congresswoman Kristen McDonald Rivet is wrapping up her first year in office. We are honored to have her with us to go over what she sees as key moments. As our representative in the 8th District, we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, this has been quite a year, I'm sure, for you. What is the most valuable thing you've learned this year?
Oh, I mean, it has been a year of learnings. It's been an incredibly tumultuous year, but I actually just think it is, going back to one of my main rules in life, right? I have 2 rules for how you operate in the world. 1, act like a grown-up, and 2, don't be a jerk. And it applies so well to Congress that if you just understand what you're trying to get done and you move forward and work on that and don't care about how many likes you get on TikTok, but you get the work done that you said you were going to do when you're there, I find that it actually works much better. Not a shocker, but it's an important lesson in politics as well as everywhere else in life.
I'm sure that's very profound. And in your formal year-end document, you list saving the Saginaw Social Security Office and funding the Flint Registry. But I'm sure that at least one or both of those accomplishments did not come easy.
No, I mean, the very first one was the Saginaw Social Security Office, and that one I'm particularly proud of because we're the only congressional office in the country that has a commitment from the White House not to close our office. But let me just be clear. So that was us pushing in Washington and demanding answers and bringing it up in committee and pushing really hard. But it was also people right here in Mid-Michigan that wrote letters and raised their voices, talked to the media, actually went out and did signs of support in front of the office about how important it was. So, you know, you talk about lessons. When we take the power of this country, which are individual voices, and you marry that with the job that we do in Washington, you actually get results. And we use the same approach on the Flint Registry, which is, you know, we have a generational debt to the residents of Flint.
Yes.
And Dan Kildee told me this when I headed into office. Never forget our hometowns and make sure that that's the focus. So we'll probably have to fight for it again next year, but that's what we'll do every year. And to make sure that debt is honored.
Well, we are happy to hear that, and you're right. It's the power of the people who help.
Absolutely.
Our Congress people, our lawmakers. So let's start by talking about, or continue, about the 2 bills you authored that have been signed into law deemed as protection of the Great Lakes and improvements to Military Forever Chemical Cleanup Act. Efforts.
So, you know, less than 3% of freshmen ever get a bill to the president's desk. So I am really, really proud of having gotten 2 signed last week. So, you know, it really has to do with protecting our people. So PFAS are forever chemicals that are, you know, we use in firefighting and all kinds of pieces, but used for years without us understanding how harmful they were to the people who are using them. So we want to make sure that we have a process to clean that up. I'm chair of the PFAS caucus in Congress and focus a lot on that space because we need to keep our firefighters and our military safe and do right by them. But the Great Lakes is making sure that we have the Great Lakes protected, but also that we you know, this bill actually creates an ice cutter that allows shipping to happen in the Great Lakes, which is really important to our economy.
And I noticed one other thing when I read your year-end document. You mentioned the word bipartisan a lot. It is so refreshing to hear that. You touched upon it when we first started speaking. Can you highlight one of those efforts for us? So we know that there is a bipartisan effort on the part of some lawmakers.
There, way more than you hear about. But let me just say that, you know, my job is to represent the people of Mid-Michigan and to move things that help us here. So every bill that I've introduced, I have done so alongside a Republican. So we have introduced legislation to lower the price of eggs. We have introduced legislation which I authored with a Republican representative from Iowa to use pre-tax dollars to pay for childcare. These are common sense things that we all need, and you know, I think the way that we see the politics shifting back and forth with every cycle, if you don't go alongside, I mean, this is just common sense, right? If you don't go alongside a Republican in authoring the policy, they will just undo it when they have the opportunity. So let's figure out how to act like grown-ups, work together.
Which you mentioned,
which
yes.
I mentioned, right? And I'm actually have been ranked in Washington as the most bipartisan member of the Michigan delegation.
That is a good title to wear.
Yes, it is. I'm very proud of it.
That is wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about the economy. You mentioned the price of eggs, so that's a great segue to talk about this economy, which for many people are farmers, other Michiganders, and people around the country. Where does that stand right now?
I mean, things just are not affordable. You know, we can point to different economic measures. That doesn't mean anything to people when you're going to the grocery store, which, you know, I'm still the mom who goes to the grocery store. A month ago, I went to make a crock pot roast, right? We all have that in Michigan once a week, right? A pot roast to serve 3 people was $25.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And it used to be very common here that you could have one job and get to the middle class. And that's harder and harder and harder. In fact, most people in Mid-Michigan can't achieve that. And when you're working 60 hours a week and you still are worried that you can't afford meat when you're at the grocery store or your utility bills, that's a 5-alarm fire for us in Congress and needs to be. So virtually everything that I focus on is in the space of getting wages up and trying to bring costs down. So we're looking at housing, and I'm very worried about the cost of energy, watching our utility bills skyrocket.
They are going up.
And then, of course, the thing that we're all talking about, and I've been leading the charge in the Capitol on reinstating these tax credits that help people pay for their health insurance. I've got people calling every day in our office worried that they're going to lose their health insurance because it's going to go up by $10,000, $15,000 next year.
That's a big deal. It's very important.
And we can't make things like well baby checkups and mammograms become the thing of the wealthy. And we're quickly headed in that direction. So that is my first priority. Heading back, we were able to get 4 Republicans to cross the aisle to sign a discharge petition, which means the Speaker is forced to bring the reinstatement of those tax credits to the floor when we're back in January, and that is the first thing that I'm working on when I head back to Washington.
That's good to know, and I cannot let you go without talking about the release of the Epstein files. It was my understanding and others that they were all supposed to be released on December 19th. That isn't happening.
No.
How is that possible?
They're defying the law. You know, again, this is Democrats and Republicans. We actually had to force that bill. The Speaker would not bring it to the floor. We forced a discharge petition, which is incredibly unusual, unfortunately more commonplace in this Congress. And it passed in a big way through the House and the Senate. So we expect the Department of Justice to release those files. Look, I'm the mom of 4 daughters.
I have a daughter too.
We're talking about 14 and 15-year-old girls that were victims, it's thousands of victims. And it is just immoral and unethical not to release them. And we shouldn't have had to pass a law to have that done, but we did. And now they're in violation, and we need to hold them accountable.
Yeah, and we'll be keeping our eye on that. So looking ahead to the next year, I know you mentioned health care and the subsidies. What else are your priorities going into this next year?
You know, we have been really watching carefully the jobs in this district, in this region. And we know when we lost Project Grit, that was 10,000 jobs gone. I'm worried about the retraction of the chips manufacturing and other advanced manufacturing that we have started to reignite here in the region. And so one of my priorities is to make sure that we are still working on the economic development things that we need to do, because look, costs are going up. We need to get a handle on that. But we actually have to get people's wages up, and the best way to do that is high wage jobs right here in our backyard. So that's one of my biggest priorities next year as well.
Any big plans for the holidays?
I have all of my kids together, which is very unusual because, you know, they're mostly adults now.
Yes.
And I'm making a giant pan of cinnamon rolls. And we're going to hang out in our pajamas for a long period of time.
Well, that sounds fun. You need that after this last year. Is there anything else as we end our discussion that you would like Michiganders to know?
Yeah, I just think that our politics feel really awful right now and pretty scary, but we don't have to give in to that, right? The expectations of here, everybody here gets up and expects to work really hard, and they want that hard work to equal something. And if we hold to that and not creating this space of you're right and I'm wrong constantly, agree to have a conversation and remember that the power of the country is with individual people, then I think we can get through this.
All right. Thank you for those parting words. We appreciate it. Thank you for coming by, and we wish you luck going into the new year.
Thank you so
for
much.
representing us.
Thank you.